Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the In Place of War Changemaker Summit. My name's Bobby. I'm a producer at In Place of War. And I'm very excited this evening to be bringing you a talk from all the way from Brazil via Manchester with Keisha Thompson and Moura on what is woman. So I am going to hand over to these amazing women now. Thanks very much.
Hello.
Well, hello, where's Keisha?
Should I jump straight into the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah. I'll just share my screen. Hi, everyone. So yeah, Ellie and I have we met over Zoom or through WhatsApp as well recently, and we've just put together a presentation that will hopefully just give you an insight into some of our ideas around what it means to be a woman. Ellie, is there anything else that you wanted to say? Are you ready for me to?
Yes, it's perfect. My name is Ellie from Brazil. I'm very happy to be here and very, very glad to have crossed my path with this amazing human being that is Keisha Thompson. It's my honor to be here. Thank you.
It's my honor to join this platform with you as well. Okay, so we thought that we'd just start, obviously, with some introductions. That would be wise, wouldn't it? So I just thought I'd share a poem of mine that I've written that gives you a sense of who I am. And it's called As All Boys Did, So I Tried to Do. And it's in response to a poem by an amazing poet called Roger Robinson, who's got a poem that's called As All Boys Did. Headers, grey feelers, salt on slugs, Ren and Stimpy protests in McDonald's when they gave me a Barbie instead of a car. Scars upon scars on these corduroy knees, running face first to the wind to win the playground race. Chinese burns and headlocks until I was asked to show me privates. The pretense was deciphered. Not one of them. I didn't let them see my church dresses or my butterfly wings. I was singing football chants louder than the next lad, Tekken and a need for speed, a fist to the screen, then a stern look from my mother. No more PlayStation till you learn to calm your temper. But I was an open mouth breather, flipping collectible coins, playing to the binary of this biology, this species. Bird feces on my shoulder's a good sign because I've been stabbing trees and cutting the doll's hair off, kickboxing and blue socks, wrestling and moored and moored and moored and moored and moored and throwing rocks in the park instead of bread. I've been straddling the shed, coming to the edge, like Evil Knievel, ready to break bones, hoping I'll crack myself open and show them all that rotten spice and everything nice and pink, like blood, curdled with piss. This is what I'm made of.
That was beautiful. Yes. I am Ellie. I'm an activist of the feminist movement and I am an artist. So I consider myself an artivist. And I want to tell you guys, because I could do an introduce about myself also, but I wanted to tell you a short story that is just when I was just a little girl. When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? And here's what she said to me. She said, you were raised as a girl, so you're basically fucked. You will never be pretty because the Eurocentric standards of beauty will always depreciate your Latin body. You will never be rich enough because there's always going to be a person who was raised as a boy that will do less than you and earn more than you because our capitalism also was raised as a boy through the arms of patriarchy. And while I was writing these memories, I kept grabbing myself with the word raise. My mom raised me as a girl. In Portuguese, that is my first language, we don't say raise children, raise someone. We say my mom created me as a girl, not raised. And I kept thinking in the sentence, my mom raised me, my mom raised me in English. So she raised me like a building rising from the floor. And I realized that my mom built me. She built my structures, my social structures. She structured my foundations as they did hers, as they do to us all. And as a female building, we have pink walls, but our doors are always closed. Maybe too scared about burglars or thieves and rapists. Well, when I was a girl, when I was a little child, I wish I had blue walls. I wish I had yellow, purple, all the colors of the rainbow walls. And I wish I could sleep with my windows and doors wide open. But that is not the foundation that was planned for me. That was not the foundation for female buildings. So when I was just a little person, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? And here's what she said to me. She said, I will raise you as a girl. So you're basically fucked. And que sera, sera. And that's the only way for this presentation, how I can think about introducing what I think about what is being female, about the world. And in that subject, I would like to ask Keisha, for you now in our call for adventure, beginning this journey of ours in this presentation, for you, what is woman? What is to be woman? What is woman in your point of view?
So I find this question really exciting, exhilarating, and then immediately like paralyzing to try and answer. And for some reason, I think about a talk that I went to that FKA Twigs did in Manchester, where she was kind of talking about embracing her sexiness. I think someone asked her a question from the audience and they were kind of like, oh, in all of your videos, you're so sexual and blah, blah, blah. But I really loved her response because she was saying that she directs a lot of her work. And when you look at a lot of her work, it's very abstract and she defines what sexiness is. It's very unconventional. And I think she was also saying that she challenges that idea of her. There's almost like a kind of a put down of her to want to share that part of herself, to share this essence of her being really sexy. But she was like, there's power in that. And I loved that. I was like, yeah, there is. Because I think coming back to the poem that I shared at the beginning, I was really grateful in that I grew up in a family where I was, don't get me wrong, obviously there was sexism flying all around because it just is pervasive in society. But I was very much a tomboy. I was allowed to be androgynous. And I found so much freedom in that, like just wearing whatever I wanted, climbing trees. I remember seeing adverts on the TV for toys and it would specifically would say at the bottom, for boys. And I'd look at my mum and I was like, I want that. And she'd buy it and she'd let me have it. So for me, I've been really grateful in that I've been allowed to explore who I am just as a person and not feel like I'm a woman specifically. I went to an all-girls school that was very freeing. So I think I've had a really good experience in that I've been allowed to get to know myself whilst having this awareness that there's an expectation of me as a woman or whatever, and whatever that is, but I've always been able to challenge it. But I think for me, what I like doing now as a woman is advocating for other women who are different to me, and kind of showcasing this idea that there's no specific type, there's no thing, you can't pin it down, there's no definition, and anything that has shame attached to it, I feel inclined to try and celebrate it. So when we kind of get shamed for being sexy or whatever, I'm like, well, where's the celebration in that actually? Where's the power in that? So for me, being a woman is just constantly navigating, redefining, surprising people, and just finding yourself and attaching that to whatever this ridiculous definition is that we are having to push against.
Yes.
Yeah. So I throw the question back to you now. What does it mean for you?
Yes, I kept thinking about this question, and I kept thinking about what is woman, you know? And the image of a matryoshka, is the Russian doll, kept popping in my head, because I think when you were born and people identify you with your biological sex and raise you as a female building, you know, they built you as that. They are trying to put us in boxes. And when I think a box, a traditional box of what is woman, I see a box and it's written woman. And open this box and I see these words, and the words are mother, child, denso, fragile, delicate, hormonal, sensitive, blood, long hair, soft, polite, small, loving, tenderness, wife, girlfriend, quiet, breast, pussy, milk, hugs, love. And all of these words keep popping in my head. And it's okay for us to see that as woman, but it's okay to see that in other boxes also. But femininity for me, to be woman, the word woman in gender-wise relation, I understand as a matryoshka, because for me, when I open my doll and I see my little box, it's okay to have this woman, traditional woman box in it, but I also want to have other boxes as with other words like strong, powerful, smart, outspoken, funny, bizarre, cruel, hateful, honest, worker, boss, oversized, brilliant, wishful, great, amazing, slow, fast, hungry, you know, ashamed, proud. And all these words, they are usually gender free. When you say you're someone that is proud, you don't relate them to a box. You relate them to whatever. You relate them to people, to personalities. And for me nowadays, to be woman is to understand this big, huge box that can fit all the other little boxes that people build, because we cannot run away from boxes. People will put them in there. They will put us in there. But I think we have to try to build this big, huge matryoshka of femininity, of woman, and to fit there everything. So to be woman for me nowadays is this, is to create not a building but a city, you know, with multiple buildings and with a very weird and beautiful architecture project. Now this is what means to me nowadays to be woman.
Yeah.
Besides of the challenges that we're going to talk now.
Yes. Okay, so I'll jump back to the presentation now. Share screen, so smooth. Okay, it's that big. It's always a little bit slow, isn't it, on Zoom?
So when me and Keisha, we were building this presentation, we had this call for adventure. That is what we're doing now, asking ourselves what is to be women. Is a call for everybody to join us and to think of this huge adventure, to think what is woman. And now we propose ourselves to talk about the challenges that this brings. And we talked a lot and we thought of two pinpoints that we can talk about now. That is, what is binarism, and also patriarchy as a colonial power control tool. And beginning in the challenge of thinking binarism, I have an image that I think is the last slide, but I don't know if it's like, it's going to be fast enough for us to put
Yeah,
in
do you want me to throw it up now? Yeah,
yes.
that's fine. Yeah. Okay.
It's cool.
Oh, there we go.
And here we have this beautiful spectrum, because we were raised to believe, when we were born, we were raised to believe that we have only two types of biological sex, that is man and women, XX, XY, and that's it. And this is so outdated, because even in the 60s with the Genome Project, we already know that we have more than 12 type of genetic variations when we're talking about biological sex. And nowadays we have more than 100 million intersex people in the world. It's a very big variation. So it's really bizarre that we define ourselves only as women and men. We put ourselves in those two boxes, the blue one that is written male and the pink one that is written female. And we forget that we have this huge spectrum when we're talking about gender, when we're not viewing only the biological sex. When we go to the gender orientation, how we identify ourselves, we can see that we have this huge, huge spectrum that we can identify ourselves with. More than nowadays, I think it's more than 98 types of different genders that exist. If I want to relate myself with air, with a tree, with poetry, and define myself as a poetry person, my gender is poetry, I can do that, because we cannot only just see that we have female and male because of a genetic formation, you know. And I don't know what you think about, Keisha. In the I hear you saying in your pre-presentation in IPO, and now you talk a lot about how free it was for you to not being closed up in this definition of what is to be female, and how it was for you to understand your body through those aesthetic variations that you put in yourself, even though nowadays you identify as women and you identify with the pronouns she and her. But how was to escape that for a while? How was to come out of that box? What do you think about that?
I think, and this is just to add context in general, I'm an artist and a producer based in Manchester. I'm also trained as a maths teacher, and I'll get into that in a second. But I think having that level of creativity and playfulness from a young age helped me navigate these conversations, like you were just saying, because it always felt like a game for me. I enjoyed dressing up in different outfits and challenging people's perceptions of like what a little girl should be wearing, for example. And I'd just find people's responses to just be quite hilarious. So it was like, why are you wearing that? Little girls don't wear that. I was like, but I'm a little girl and I'm wearing it though. So and I remember like getting to my teenage years, and again, a lot of stuff to do, like interactions with boys. I'm straight, by the way. And yeah, it'd be stuff like, you don't wear makeup, or you do this, you do that. Why? And I was like, but you're still flirting with me, you're still attracted to me, you still ask me out, so why are you bothered? Like, I can demonstrate all these things that you find to be non-feminine, but you're still attracted to me as a woman, so why is it an issue? Like, why is it a problem? So I think, yeah, I think being encouraged to be creative and encouraged to be a critical thinker from a young age, to debate and have arguments, were really strong tools for me. I was always just challenging things and asking questions. Yeah, so I think that was my armor, of being able to identify, like you're saying, just the blatant contradictory nature of everything. Like, you constantly being told to put things in boxes, or girls do this and boys do that, and you're like, but they don't though. And I see examples of that every day.
Yes.
So it's like, why are we all engaging in this lie?
Yes, yes, because that lie, and that's perfect, because binarism supremacy, it's a strategy. Because we're going to talk a little about that later, of course, about our way of how we see ourselves as feminists. But I think we can rely, when we talk about the colonial feminism way of seeing things, and when we start understanding how colonialism was a movement that extracts and never put it back, and that only grabs and extracts and extracts and extracts for more capital, for more money, for more resources. So we start building ourselves in society, understanding that there are superior boxes, there are superior beings that put us in smaller boxes so they can control everything. So binarism is a tool for supremacy, is a tool for us to be put here to be women, so we can be more controlled. Because if we have, like a lot of tribes have, dozens of gender variations in their culture, if we do that in our society, it becomes harder for us to just oppress and to build this pyramid where the basis will only supply to the highest bidder until the top of the pyramid. And
Yeah.
the top of the pyramid, always understanding that is white and male and heterosexual and I don't know, and rich and everything that comes with that. It's colonialistic.
Yeah.
It's oppressing. It's a strategy. I always think as a tool
Yeah,
of a
definitely.
big operation.
Yeah. And we see it outside of gender. I mean, look at, we've just had the elections in America, forcing
Yes.
people to make a decision between two things, and it's never that simple. I mean, you know, a lot of people are just happy that Trump's gone. They're not necessarily on the
Yeah.
side of Biden. So yeah, it definitely is that thing of when we try to skew things and force things into like two very tight boxes or divisions. It's definitely a
Yes.
tool of manipulation. And once you can understand that, then it gives you the power to navigate it.
Yes.
I don't know if this is a good point for me to come in with my knowledge about binary, my reflection on binary, or did you want to say some more?
Yes, because just picking that point up, because when you divide, you conquer, and
Mm-hmm.
that's like a war strategy. And when you polarize, you are dividing. And now we are living in a polarized, totally polarized world. And the social network and digital media showed us, put a big lens on it so we can see how divided we are. And each day that it passes, we divided ourselves more and more and more for us to just battle against each other and forget about our humanity. And
Mm-hmm.
binarism is definitely a way of polarizing us and dividing us.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I wrote a piece for Apples and Snakes, which is an organization based in London, based in the UK, and they showcase poets. And they wanted me to talk about the work that I do, kind of navigating poetry and mathematics in my practice. And I wrote a piece called The Brainery, Brainwash, the Binary Brainwash. That's a tongue
That's
twister.
amazing.
So I'm just going to read it out. But it kind of leads on from what you were just talking about, Ellie, in that the binary, in the way that it's fed to us at the moment, encourages this idea of exclusivity, of like, you're in this group, so that means that you're not in the other one.
Yes.
And it creates barriers and inaccessibility, but that doesn't have to be the case. So yeah, I'll read the article. Binary. It basically means one thing or the other, right? But if you trace the word back, it actually stems from the Latin word bini, meaning two together. So when first appropriated into English language, its meaning was closer to that of duality, as opposed to an idea of mutual exclusivity, which we've become familiar with. So for us, binary is now linked to mathematics, it's linked to zeros and ones, it's linked to numbers, it's linked to exclusivity. I started my paragraph just now talking about language, a great love of mine, but ended up talking about numbers, another great love of mine. And for some, that would be a contradiction. How can you love language and numbers? How can you be a poet and a mathematician? Young people are constantly taught to think in binary. You're either one thing or you're the other. You're good at maths, you're good at English. Girls are better at this, boys are better at that. But I'm grateful to say that I managed to swerve the binary brainwash. I was introduced to a range of subjects and activities before I even got to school. I loved writing poetry, I loved maths, I loved football, I loved ballet, I loved baking, I loved kickboxing, I loved everything. And there were no binaries to be seen. Furthermore, when I got to high school, again, I went to a girls' school, so the idea of binaries just went out the window. I was exposed to all types of people, and it just so happened that they all identified as being female. The binaries that we often experience when it comes to subjects such as maths and English are associated with another one, the gender binary. So many studies have told us that girls are not pursuing careers in science and maths. Schemes like STEM have been used to try and tackle the problem, and I'm happy to support things like STEM. However, it adheres to the same binary that it tries to solve. It adheres to the idea that girls are bad at maths, that boys are good at maths, that girls need schemes to help them to get better careers, that boys don't need schemes to help them get better careers, that STEM subjects are more important than other subjects, that we need more girls in these topics to boost the economy, as opposed to considering how those fields would actually benefit just from a diverse range of contributions. In my view, we need to change the approach entirely if we actually want to see real change. A recent article by Catherine Wu at Nova stated that the results of the research into subject attainment and gender gap are reporting in a way that is misleading. So in actual fact, the results from over 60 countries around the world show that the difference between male and female attainment is pretty insignificant. And girls are seen to excel in more verbal and language-based subjects at an earlier age, are led to believe that in a way that makes them then think that they're bad at maths, and that is the binary brainwash. So her article was a pleasure to read because it said all the stuff that I find to be true in my experience as a teacher, that it's just way more expansive than that, and it's never just one thing or the other. I'll stop there in terms of reading the article because it goes into an anecdote which I can just reel off anyway. I don't need to read that bit. So for me, the issue, and we're going to get onto this talking about things that we think can be done to change things moving forward and be more pragmatic. I think it's about tapping into people's mentalities and addressing socialization. So many times when I talk to people about issues of gender, patterns that we see that are attached to the two sexes that we like to adhere to, I'm like, you know, that's a product of socialization, right?
Yes.
It's not like a biological thing.
Yes,
it's not
yes,
a biological thing. And I always have to make that point.
Yes.
And an example that I saw when I was teaching some primary school children, they were all about 8 years old and they were just learning how to, like, I think, add fractions or something. And they had to do something on the whiteboard on the carpet, and then if they did that right, they could go to the table and do more questions. And I saw a lot of the girls getting promoted. They were going to their tables, and I was thinking, oh, this is interesting. But what I was finding was a lot of the girls, when you went over to them, they found it so easy to say that they needed help. So they were just like, I don't know what I'm doing, miss, I need help. And then you could help them.
Yes.
And then they moved on. So I was like, that's so interesting. Right now in this moment, the girls are doing well at maths because they're allowed to be vulnerable, because they're allowed to say, I don't know. And that's something that we've been taught in socialization. But in this moment in time, it's actually quite useful. The boys, I was going around to them and they were like, yeah, miss, yeah, know what I'm doing. And they were getting it wrong. They didn't have a clue, but they didn't want to say. And I found it so sad. I thought it was really sad that a bunch of 8-year-old boys at that point already felt like they had to put on some kind of facade and pretend that they knew what was going on, and I was like, they don't know and they can't voice it and they're still on the carpet. They can't progress. But somehow they're going to come out of this school thinking that they're better than maths still than girls. I was like, this is just so ridiculous. What are we teaching these children? And yeah, I just found it really tragic, the whole situation. But I was like, it's so bizarre that in this particular instance, being a girl, being a vulnerable girl is actually helpful to your learning, because at least you've got the freedom to just go, I don't know, and then someone will just help you and you can move on. But I was just thinking, in essence, what's happening here is we're just being trapped by our expectations, this binary expectation. And it was so
that can reach so many levels, because that example is perfect, especially with math, because that's perfect, especially when we're talking about binarism. I love that, what we just said. And that example is so brilliant, because when we reach other layers of that, we can say like they were able to be vulnerable and to ask and to learn more. But there's also a very twisted way of seeing that when girls ask and they say I don't understand, that is directly affecting their self-esteem, because in the social group they understand that they don't know, and the boys getting the wrong answers, they understand I didn't have to ask anything, I already know. That arrogance of knowing, of knowledge, builds them a self-esteem that for girls are ripped off. Like you can't play an instrument as like a boy because they do play. They know math. They know how to play guitars and drums, and you don't. And we try, and we have also, in another sense, in a positive sense, we can ask and be better. But the structure, the foundations of gender are so deep, and the pyramid is so pointy that when we go out of school and when we reach the business world, the guy has such a big self-esteem that he gets the job. And we have more titles, we have more knowledge about that, but they got the job because they have the self-esteem to do it. And it's just messed up. And even when we analyze the numbers, like if we think back binarism as women are one and men are two, between 1 and 2 we have infinite numbers. And we forget about that we have, I can be a 1.5, I can be a 1.53509, and that doesn't matter because we're put in these two divided numbers, not together, as you said brilliantly in your text, in your speech, because it's not like the language doesn't oppose, it complements, it's complementary, like it's hybrid. And what are our weapons? After the challenge, what are our weapons? What can we do? What weapons have we found for us to, because okay, we understand that's the structure, we understand the foundations, but how can we break them? How can we change them? How can we see things in another way? And I think the feminist movement theoretically is an answer. The feminist movement can bring us lights to our eyes, and becomes, I think the word weapon, I like this word because when we were building this and we saw the word weapon, I think weapon is interesting because when we think weapon, we think of destruction and you think of something that is going to hurt someone. But no, it's our way of building our tools. To destroy some things, because sometimes we have to destroy something to build something beautiful in it, what in feminism, what is your weapon, Keisha? What do you understand? Like, I really want to know, like, how feminism walked in your life, and how do you take that knowledge and those experiences and put on your work and put on your way of living and pushing through life to change the world and etc.
So for me, my weapon within feminism is the language. When I was 20, I started to call myself a feminist. Before that point, I knew I was a feminist, but I didn't use the word. I found it terrifying. I found that it would create negative responses from people, arguments, people like, oh, you're a bra burner, are you a man hater, and and again, it just comes back to that kind of binary thinking. But once I embraced the word, then I was like, I lead with my actions and I demonstrate what I think an idea of a woman should be to you. And then when you ask me, I say, yes, I'm a feminist. And I challenge your idea of what that even means or what that even looks like. So it's helped me in terms of just articulating and just having language and just being really aware, like always looking out for any opportunity, any moment where I see sexism manifesting itself, and I'm like, what can I do? what can I do in this small moment? There have been times when I've been like in a class, for example, and there's a little boy sat with his legs open, a little girl sat with her legs open, and the teacher will say, close your legs to the girl. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Or I'll say, will you close your legs as well to the boy?
Perfect.
And it's just little things like that. So I think it's just given me this sense of knowledge and empowerment that's allowed me to go out into the world and make little changes here and there. I say to my nephews, I call them beautiful. I use language that's associated with being feminine towards them. And then with my nieces, I'm really rough with them. And I use language that's quite masculine. I'm like, you're so strong. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Because I know that they'll be getting the opposite in the outside world. So I'm just balancing things up. And I let them know that I'm doing this as well. I have those conversations with them as well. And I think just the way that I manifest and I kind of walk around just being the wacky artistic aunt that I am in their lives challenges their view all the time. Like I bought my nephew a book because he loves gaming, and I specifically went to find a book that was written by a woman. I was like, I'll buy you a gaming book, but it has to be written by a woman, because you need to understand that women contribute to this field as well. So they're my weapons. I think just having an awareness, knowing the theory, and knowing that I need to be generous, owning the label of feminism, and then knowing that I need to be generous with who I also see as feminists. And loads of my friends wouldn't call themselves feminists, and I won't call them feminists because they won't like it. But in my head, I'm like, you're a feminist. I know that you are. You just demonstrate female power and energy, and that's enough for me.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Because the capitalism, because the patriarchy structure, they found a way of twisting what is feminism, because it's a powerful weapon, and they know, the structure knows, and every time that we try to change something will resist. It's hard to make changes. And for me, feminism, and I understand feminism as everything that brings equality and defends what is feminine, what is femininity. And femininity can, as you said, can exist in a biological sex, male genetic formation, because gender is not related to that. So femininity is in everywhere. There is a book that is very interesting from Françoise de Beaune that is called Le Feminisme ou la Mort, that was written in 1984. And Françoise, for the first time in the feminist movement, started speaking about ecofeminist movement of ecofeminism. And the ecofeminism is understanding that we have femininity in everything, in trees, in the earth, in everything that creates. And if we understand that everything that creates, that gives us resources, is related to woman, it's related to being feminine, we can understand that capitalism, being the opposite of that, through patriarchy structure, destroys and extracts. And that structure can be related to our economy and to about every social structure. And that was the first time that I noticed that the feminist movement, it's economic, it's political, it's social, it's everything. And it's a movement, a political movement that can change the world in all meanings, in all ways. And after that, I started reading not only white feminists, because the first time that I got in touch with feminism was after I was sexually assaulted at 17 in a party. And I was with a group, a supporting psychological group, and I understand what it was, and I started studying. And all the literature that I was getting in touch was Simone de Beauvoir, was Andrea Dworkin, Betty Friedman, and they were all white. And they were always talking about feminism in the first wave with suffragism, and the second wave in the 60s. And I started realizing that that was still something that was very sectorial. It was very, and I started bothering me. So I started reading other feminists, and then I discovered what how deep feminism could go. And I started reading Angela Davis and Kimberly Crenshaw and Patricia Hill Collins, Bell Hooks, and I started understanding a little bit about the multiple avenues that Crenshaw talks when we're talking about intersectionality. I don't know. Sorry about that. Yes, intersectionality, and understanding the intersectionality that Black females go through, and Latina women's have another avenue. And I started understanding that race is the basis of everything. And nowadays I understand that I am a white Latina woman, that I cannot be contra-colonialist, but I can be decolonialist. And this is how I understand myself nowadays. I can change, I don't know, because I changed so many times. But now I understand that the tool for especially white female to understand the crossway of the decolonial feminist movement is the basis for a true reform. Because we have to understand that we as white women don't speak for Black women, but they speak for us. And we have to read Sojourney and to drink on those fountains, and to understand that being anti-racist is being feminist. It's understanding the whole structure. And now I understand that this too, feminism, is the tool that can change the world for a better world, a world not that understands equality between men and women. No, that understands equality between everything, all the human structures and economic and political and etc. And that's how I think that this is a very powerful weapon.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. Those moments when you read feminism from someone else's perspective is so empowering. I remember reading about Nawal El-Saadawi about 4 years ago whilst I was writing my first poetry collection. And I loved it. She's an Egyptian doctor, and she was just talking about how becoming a doctor in Egypt, being a Muslim woman and not having children was so heretical, and that was her power. And because she was a doctor, she then afforded herself a level of economic status so that she could then push against boundaries. But it was just really interesting to see how she uses the space that she's in, the context that she's in, to demonstrate her female power and what feminism means to her and challenging patriarchy from her side. And once you read someone else's journey, it really helps you to refine your own and think about what access you have. And like you're saying, know where you sit in the world, understanding your own intersectionality, what perceptions are up against you, what margins are you moving from. And again, it's that level of awareness of like, sometimes it can feel negative to be like, oh, well, I could be like, oh, I'm a Black woman, I've got it doubly as hard. But I'm like, okay, I'm a Black woman. How do I get to subvert your ideas now? Like, this is my playing space.
Amazing.
Like, cool, let's go.
Perfect. Oh my God. I almost forgot that we were doing a presentation because we're like talking. I'm like, oh no, we're live.
But so we've got like 12 minutes left, and I know we wanted to talk briefly about the projects that we have. So I loved when I got to hear your talk for In Place of War, talking about the Count on Me campaign, where you're essentially running programs, events, projects, but there's a massive training aspect to it beforehand, which is about challenging people from leadership all the way down to front of house staff, like any partner that you work with, any venue, understanding that they need to do a lot of work around their biases, their unconscious biases of sexism, misogyny, going through some training with you, some intense training that's quite expansive before then engaging and putting an event on. And I just thought that was so important, because you can just bring people, you can bring your people in, you can bring your team in, but when you leave, what's the lasting effect? So to make sure that you're stepping into an organization and you're teaching them and making a lasting impact on their organization and their structures and the mentalities of the people that work there, that level of change is going to just last forever. So I just really loved that you were doing such deep work. And I know from what you said that it was hard, and there are still like adjustments to be made because there's only so much you can do in 4 hours, for example. But yeah, I just thought it was really, really powerful. I don't know if you want to just expand a little bit on your project so people understand how it worked.
Yes, the Count on Me project that we did is a project that we started researching for a year in 2019. And it was a project that was built to reduce the numbers of violence against women in events. And because in Brazil it's really huge, the numbers, especially in carnival parties in February. And the thing is, it's funny because when we're talking about feminism and how is such a powerful, huge weapon, we understand the crossings, the avenue that crosses. And when we're talking about how can we reduce that, we cannot just only talk about how can we train security people or how can we put a campaign with flyers and banners. No, because we understand that everything is structural, everything has to go in the foundations. And when we're living in a world that is binary and a world that is sexist and a world that is racist, classist, and we understand all that, we understand that the protocols have to be built understanding that. And that was the real challenge in the project that we're still developing and still putting on the street and on events, that is to bring awareness from the CEO of the company and through the, I don't know, through the cleaning lady at the end of the party, because we have to understand that the violence that we're reducing, we're not just reducing for the audience, because that's the first thing that we think, like the girls that are going to the parties. But no, we're thinking about the cleaning ladies, the bartenders, the girls that are doing bartending, the security girls, you know, everything.
Yeah.
So it was really hard, and we're still working on it and developing more protocols and researching more and researching more. And I don't think this is ever going to end. I think I'm going to die doing this project, because that's what we're trying to do with the Count on Me campaign. And we're just trying to, you know, bring awareness to more and more producers and more events, because I think it's a place where we can impact more people, because it's the point where it has a very big agglomeration of people, so we can like bring awareness and reduce the impact. And I'm going to put it back to you, because this is our part where we go home and what we can do going back home with all our weapons and the challenges that we face it. And in 2020, I can say that I gained a very big present, that it was to meet you, Keisha. And if I would build a box for Keisha, it would be with inspiration, with mystery, with deep waters, with blue fire, with creation, with she's a builder, you know. I would put the word poetry on it. I would put the word imagination. And I think that who raised you made you a translucent building, you know. It's not blue, it's not colorful, it's a translucent building. This is where I put Keisha's boxes in my head now. And I would like to ask you, you are such a multiple artist. You work with a lot of languages, multiple languages, music, poetry, design, theater. And I would like to understand about your last two works, because I understand that ephemerality is something that is changeable, not permanent, like the moon, who for us in our perspective is constantly changing its form, and it influences our female body and our female poetry as beings. So I would like you to talk about a little bit about ephemera and lunar, and how do they cross this ephemerality of both, you know, in your construction.
So Luna, I'll try and keep it brief because I know we've got 4
Yes.
questions in the box. Let me try and
Yes, we do.
So Luna is a book that encompasses a collection of poems and a play that I wrote called Man on the Moon, which is about my relationship with my dad. And I really wanted to explore what it feels like to be the daughter of a man who is a recluse, who has been brought up in Britain as a Black British man, and just the racism that he faced and the struggles that he faced and the mental health issues that he then dealt with, and how that then translated onto me, and the kind of dynamic between father and daughter as well, that kind of relationship. So that's what Loon is about. And then and I really wanted to kind of champion fatherhood and analyze masculinity, because as I was saying before, when I see myself as a feminist, I just see myself as an interrogator of gender. So that means I'm as much interested in masculinity and dismantling that as I am about the stereotypes that are attached to femininity, because as we've already said all the way through this thing, it's not binary. And then with Ephemera, I had a collection of poems, and whenever I perform them, people be like, where can I find them? And I was like, I've not got a significant body of work to make a collection out of it. But as you said, I'm a musician as well. So I was like, I feel like I can make an EP out of this. But I really wanted to acknowledge those moments that feel temporary or fleeting or insignificant, that actually then feel like they, on reflection, have quite an impact on who you are and your identity. And I just wanted to showcase my fluid journey as a woman and what I feel has contributed to my experience, or my kind of make the making of me in terms of becoming the woman that I am, but just trying to be really open and playful about that story and challenging what people think femininity is. So that's what Ephemera is. But yeah, thank you so much for all the love. Like, it's really hard to we were both like, oh, we're just gonna talk about each other's work.
It's your fault. It's all your fault.
We already decided we're going to meet up in Brazil. It's happening. Yeah, there's pure declarations of female love going on here. But I'm just going to jump into the chat box, see if we can answer some of these questions. So one of them was, I see a fine line being crossed quite often where empowered women use sexuality fairly gratuitously on social media, particularly those in music. I find it hard to see more than half naked women and still find empowerment and value in their work. Is this a dangerous line, or should I feel less sensitive about it?
Yeah, that's a tricky question, because I think we have to understand that our sexualization, the sexualization of our bodies, is not our fault. People see a naked body, a naked female body, and instantly sexualize it. But that brings us to a big, huge wall where, oh no, I cannot sexualize myself because then I will be exploited. But that's not truth. If we want to explore our own bodies, we have that freedom. We can. I know that most of the times, a lot of the men and a lot of the people can see that as objectification, but it depends where this starts from. You know, like we have in Brazil, the funk movement that comes from the slumbers, the favelas, and the funk music is really brutally sexual, like really brutally sexual. But the female just grab that, and they can be even harder than the guys. So they are really vulgar, but they put the vulgar in their art. So it's like, it's my pussy, it's my body. I can fuck whoever I want. And this is truly powerful for them, because they part from that point of view where they own that. They know that they're doing that. So that becomes a weapon also. So that's what I think.
Yeah. I'd say for me, it's about choice, and you don't have to be sexy, but if you're someone who is sexual and wants to be sexy, you shouldn't be denied. So that's the thing. I think it's making that distinction of, just because I'm a woman, it doesn't mean I now have to be sexy. But if that's what I want to do, then I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it on my terms. And that's why I love people like FKA Twigs. And Lady Gaga, she's wearing a meat dress. If someone can wear a meat dress and make that look sexy, I'm like, okay, let's go. I'm happy. And also, if you want to showcase your body, it doesn't always have to be sexy. So I remember Lena Dunham, when she was doing an interview and talking about girls, and a guy was like, you're always naked in your shows and stuff, but it's not sexy. And she was like, right, what's the question?
Yeah. Perfect.
She's like, I
It's
just
just the
like to be
body.
naked because I
Yeah.
think you don't get to see bodies like mine often. And in my eyes, she was like, I walk around my house naked. So if I'm writing a show that's kind of like about a woman like me, she's going to walk around the house naked. And no, it's not always sexy. She's not trying to be sexy. She's just walking around the house naked.
She's just naked. Yeah.
So she's like, yeah, you didn't find it sexy and that's fine. What's the question?
Exactly.
Couldn't really. So yeah, I
Exactly.
think it's just challenging what people's ideas of make it, why does it naked body sexy? Why is that
Exactly.
always a thing? Like just dismantle that.
It's perfect. It's like pornography, you know, like just putting an extra point on that, because I researched it for a while, the pornographic industry. And the thing is, of course, like 99% of pornographic industry, it's violence against women and etc. But we also have female pornography, and we can take charge of that. We can possess that to ourselves. We can grab that and say, no, I'm going to be part of that also, because I can't put my feminist perspective in that and make that my own. So if we know where we're going through and why we are doing that, I think it's our empowerment. So it shouldn't be questioned.
There's just one other question, which is, what advice would you give to young people who are starting to explore feminism and gender binary? What advice? That's so interesting. Because I work with young people a lot, and I don't like to be prescriptive. I think it's just about understanding who you are and what your interests are, and not attaching a gender or anything to that. But just knowing, I think it's about any young person. I'm always, any choice that they make, whether we're talking about gender or anything, I'm like, why do you want to do that? Is that for you? Be aware of what the world is, be aware of the structures that you're working against, and then lead with with things that you're good at and things that give you joy. That's the best way to navigate this world. Just know what you're good at, capitalize on those things, but strive for what brings you joy, and whatever that means within the context of gender. I would apply it to that. So I'm sorry that that's quite a generic response, but I'd say in terms of just understanding gender and feminism, just do a lot of reading, or just engage with artists who challenge you, or people who, like we were saying, try and engage with material from people that is really different to you.
Yes, I think I can even bring your work's name here and be Ephemera, you know? Like, because if you are born in a world that everything is so structured and so hard to break, we have to be the opposite, like be water, my friend. Like, just know that everything that we know can change at any moment. So everything that you define yourself or you think that you know, just know that you don't know, and that you have to keep on going and talking to more people and seeing videos that you wouldn't see generally, and reading things that you usually wouldn't read, and start trying to construct that, like to take the layers, because when we're born, a lot of layers are put on us. The semiotics of everything is like totally hard, and try to, you know, be ephemera, be taking off those layers and just flowing and navigating and understanding that everything we understand has mobility, is changeable, everything is changeable. So I think that it's how I don't know, that's how I talk to my nephews. That's how I always try to reach them. Like they say, oh, I think this is this, and I'm like, why? I'm like a 70-year-old guy asking them, like I'm a 70-year-old also asking, why is that? Why is that? And they're like, oh my God. And it's like, just question everything and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool.
Do we have more time, or we?
Well, it's 3 minutes over. So it's up to you, Bobby.
Hang on. I'm going to be a voice now. I'm not going to be a I'm not going to be a video, just a voice coming in. I mean, I guess just for you guys to kind of, if you have any kind of closing statements and want to kind of wrap things up, I will leave it up to you how you want to finish. I wouldn't want to take over now. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I think the final thing we were going to say was, how has feminism changed us for the better? Was that the final thing that we wanted to kind of leave with?
Yes,
I suppose we've talked about that quite broadly, or
yes.
if we were to simmer it down.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that the final path, we already covered that, but I can say that today I'm living here, this virtual place, a different person than I walked in, because of everything that we changed with each other. And that is the beauty when two female forms reach to each other, when they encounter themselves. We are seeing each other through each other's eyes and mixing everything. So the mind just becomes a different mind after this types of gathering. So I can say now, if I would put myself in the box of this presentation, it would be that I am more empowered, I am more inspired, I am more, I just ate a very big lunch here. I don't know what's the word in English for that, for satisfied. I don't know. It's like I'm full, I'm
Yeah.
good. My tummy is warm now.
Yeah, I'd say feminism has given me the gift of finding power in vulnerability and collaboration. So like all the things that you were saying before, Ellie, that we get taught to see as feminine but also see as negative, I've grown to be like, they're positives and they're super powerful, and they keep the world spinning. So yeah, that's what feminism has done for me. And it means that when you then meet another beautiful, powerful woman, you're just like, hey, we're friends.
Yes,
there's already a language.
That's perfect. Oh yeah, that's a good end. So yes.